Bonjour Marieto. Sénégal, c'est comment?
Oui, bonjour. Au Sénégal, ça va?
Et Ziguinchor?
Ça va bien, pas la chaleur, mais ça va.
Ça, c'est génial, c'est génial.
Et chez vous, comment ça va?
Ça va très bien. Là, on commence l'hiver, donc ça commence à être un petit peu froid, mais à part ça, ça va. On s'en sort très bien.
C'est super alors.
Oui, oui.
Comment ça va, Maritou, Altine, Notre, Dion?
Bonjour, Dr. Katini.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Did you guys have a good week last week?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Lauren. How are you?
Morning, Dr. Katengi. I'm fine. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Okay. It's already time, so I don't know if you want us to start now or do we give it like a few minutes?
We are only 7, right? That's a small number.
Yeah.
Do you have a WhatsApp group you can write to them?
Yeah, there's a WhatsApp group. Guys, can you help me to write?
Today, the French students get the marks, the good, get extra points for coming early.
Get the shack to the pool? Let's do it. All right. Let's play a little bit. What? What? He smacked my face. Twice. Twice? Yo, that was cold. Shack to the pool. All these jokes are written by way, by the way. Number 4. Oh, it's Dwight Howard doing amazing things. Oh, I don't have that shit. Exactly. Revenge is a dish best served cold. And we're gonna watch Superman in a second. By the way, it's after midnight. So it's April. It's April.
Dr. Katinge, is it okay if we start now? But
Yes,
over
yes,
to
yes.
you anyway. Yeah,
Yeah,
over to you.
okay. Good.
Lawrence, sorry. Can you put me on the translation mode, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, then everybody mute your microphones, please. All right, I hope you can see. So today we continue with the tools that we've been using. Just give me a sec. Sorry. Has anybody heard of gaps analysis?
No.
Oh, okay. Sawa. But can you guess what it is? Hmm? Can you guess what it is? Nobody? Okay. Sawa. So let's get right into it. A gaps analysis is basically a process that compares the current state of affairs with the expected or desired goals. So I'll go into the examples we've already had from the group. The first example was, the first example was the issue of girls not going to school. So if we take that example, that's the current state of affairs, isn't it? And then you want to ask yourself, okay, let's assume there are 19% or 20%, or even let's say 40% that are not going to school. And your desire is 100% of the girls attend school. So obviously the current state is only 60% of the girls attend school, desired state is 100. So then obviously then there's a gap of 40%. And so then you use that to try and think about how to do an action plan or what to do to design an action plan that will enable you to reach the desired state. Now, of course, this tool is useful sometimes at the beginning, even in between the process, but also at the end, because at the end, it's about getting the right solutions for you to be able to resolve the issue that you're going to be working on in the field. Now, okay, Lawrence, okay. Gaye, are you okay? Hernaina, are we okay? Oh, yes. Okay, Sawa. Thank you. All right. So basically, when we think about gaps analysis, the method provides a way to identify suboptimal, just means something that is not working very well, or the missing strategies. So a strategy, for example, is a way of doing things. Okay, a way of doing things. Then there is the structure. You want to examine the structure deeply. You want to examine capabilities. You want to examine the processes. You want to examine the practices. And you want to look at maybe technologies and skills. So you are looking at this issue from the problem, from all these perspectives, then to help you recommend the steps that are missing that will help you or the organization or solve the issue so that you meet your intended vision or the intended goal. Does that make sense? Okay. So I can see, oh, sorry. Yeah. Now, why do people look at gaps analysis? Now, basically, you want to look at your performance, your current performance versus the target. So many times some people will say, okay, this is how our school system is performing. Okay, this is and you want to understand what's the difference between how the issue is performing and how the ideal could be performing. Again, it's what I already explained, but also you want to look at the desired outcome that could be achieved at the end of the day. So in what we call project management, they call this pronounced C, it's called the C delta V and pronounced and A delta T. Basically, you're looking at performance and targets, although that's not important. Basically, you're looking at your performance vis-a-vis your target and what should be done in the middle. Now, we want to also understand the other issue, which is what are some types of gaps analysis that are normally done? So some types. So the first type of gaps analysis is where you can look at an issue, what we call the concrete gaps analysis. You look at a real world situation. So for example, what we are all looking at in our communities is a concrete gaps. You can use that, a concrete gaps analysis. You're looking at a real situation that is happening in your community. So, and then you want then, of course, to use the real facts that exist. And remember now here, earlier on, we had talked about data and why you need to be very careful about data, but also what you do with data. And I think Akina Sarah had already talked about that. So you use the real facts that exist, and that's why you go to the field to do research. And then you use that to now analyze the situation so that you concretize what are the issues. But number two, there's what we call conceptual gap analysis. Now, remember, I do what is called futures. So I normally do both concrete and conceptual gaps analysis. So I want to understand, okay, what is the situation looking like? But in the future, what might the situation look like if things are to continue the way they are, okay? But also, if I was to do an ideal, or if I was to look at a hypothetical even country, which is ideal, I would examine this hypothetical scenario. What do I want the scenario to look like? So assume, like, I want my country to have 50% of women leadership in politics, okay? That's my ideal model. So I look at that and then I start asking, what would it take me? But now where am I? Maybe I'm at 0. So then I start asking myself, if I was to make... Somebody mute themselves. If I was to make an assumption, what are the parameters I can use and to create that ideal world? What would I need for me to get 50% women in politics? And so it's the same process, only that in this case, I'm using an imaginary number or an imaginary state of affairs or an imaginary country so that I can, what is called conceptualize a gaps analysis. And this is done a lot by people who are in the innovation world. So people who are inventing things sometimes invent things that don't exist. So they start sitting down to ask, okay, if I wanted a telephone that I can move around with rather than one that is in my house, if you guys were born when there were no mobile phones, so a company like a tech company will sit and say, what would I need? How would I need this thing to look like so that it can be an ideal gadget in the future? So, and of course, I would imagine the conversation will go something like, if it is going to be carried around, it must be small, it must fit in the pocket or on the hand, okay? It must be something that can tell you the time so that it consolidates a few things. It can consolidate your calendar, it can consolidate so that you don't have to wait for the mailman to come. It can give you your mail on your emails on the phone. It can show you temperature. It can show you direction. So then using that concept, those concepts that they are developing, okay, they then come back and say, okay, for me to get a product like that, what must I do? Okay, So maybe they study the old phone technology and realize, no, the old phone technology will not work. So maybe we need a new technology. And so anyway, they keep doing trial and error, until the day they are able to conceptualize this thing and it's able to satisfy the customer. So you realize that, yes, a mobile phone has already been conceptualized, but you realize that they haven't stopped creating mobile phones. Why? Because every generation of mobile phones is an improvement from the last mobile phone. So that's what we call a conceptual gaps analysis. You conceptualize something that doesn't exist, but it's something that you think people need. And then you start now working backwards to ask yourself, how can I create this and enable people to want it? Okay. Now, I can see a few charts. Let me just look at them. Oh, sorry. Hernaina, I'm sorry. Where did I lose you? Strategical gaps analysis. Okay. Tell me so. Okay, this is not important. So it's okay. Let me just go to this one. Can I start here? Is anyone else English speaking that is lost? Okay, thank you, Hernaina. Is anyone else who's lost?
Yes, but if you start here, it's okay for me.
Okay, so first, let me just start from the beginning. It's not a problem. So we haven't covered much. So what we are talking about, we are calling it, okay, let me start. It's called a gaps analysis. A gap is can I say like a what? Assume you're jumping, oh God, I don't know. Is there any Kenyan? Is Lloyd here? Lloyd, are you here? Okay. If Lloyd is not here, think about on the side of the road, usually there is a tunnel, isn't it? Sometimes it's not covered and you want to cross from one side to the other. You understand? So a gap analysis is this distance between this where you are and where you want to cross over or to jump over. That is what is called a gap analysis. Okay? I hope that helps. So I'm asking, what is a gap analysis? A gap analysis is simply the bridge. It's the bridge between the current state of affairs or the problem you're trying to solve and the desired state of the problem. Okay? So assume you're trying to do, your problem is that 40% of the girls are not going to school. Yeah? So your current state of affairs is that you have only 60% of girls going to school. That's your current state of affairs. But what do you desire? You desire that 100% of girls or all girls and boys go to school. So then you ask yourself, if this is 60 and this is 100, what is your gap? Yes, thank you, Fionn. Space between things.
40.
40. So your gap is 40. So you've done a gaps analysis. You are trying to understand your current state of affairs and your desired state, and then to understand, okay, what problem, what is the magnitude? Okay, what is the size of my problem? And the size of my problem is 40% of young girls are not going to school. The reason you do a gaps analysis is not just to establish this space here. It is also to understand if, let's say in 10 years, I want all the girls to be going to school, what must I do? Which is what is called the action plan. Okay. And I say that gaps analysis can be used throughout the project. So you can use it at the beginning when you're trying to understand your problem. I'll give you some of the tools that you use to understand the gaps analysis. And then you can do it even when you have already finished and you are sort of like trying to figure out what are the strategies will be. That is also, it can also apply at that point in your time as you do the work, okay? So the other thing I was saying is that a gaps analysis, it's another way of explaining it, is a method that tries to understand
Sorry, are you not saying anything, or is it just me who can't hear?
Sorry, it might have gone off. So where did it go off? Oh, surely. Sorry, my phone went off. So, okay. So you want to look at the issue of strategy. What is missing? In this 40% of the girls that are not going to school, what are the strategies that have been used before, but what are the strategies that are missing so that we increase the number of girls that are not going to school? What are the structures, that have been in place? Sometimes you may find that we are using maybe in terms of structures, maybe the schools are very far from where the students are. Okay, or when it rains, the roads are so bad the students cannot pass. So it may mean that for me to fix the issue of girls increasing the number of girls in school, I need to fix the roads, right? So that, and I need to bring the schools closer to the children so that there's proximity. Sometimes I need to fix their capability. Maybe the children are not being taught very well, and so they decide we don't like school, so we are going to drop out. So maybe sometimes it's an issue of capability, or maybe sometimes it's an issue of all of them. Maybe sometimes it's an issue of process. Maybe sometimes it's an issue of practice. Let's say the teachers are not even coming to school, so students decide, okay, even the teacher may not come, so I'll not come. Maybe sometimes it's an issue of even technology, whatever it is. So you have to look at why is the situation the way is it, or why is the gap like that, by trying to understand different aspects of the situation. That helps you to recommend the steps that you will need to help you meet the goals, or to help you fix the gap. Okay. All right. So I said I'll skip why, because I think I've already explained that, because that will only confuse you. And then let's go to what are some of the types of gaps analysis that we have. I said the first type of analysis is where you have a real situation, a real world situation, like all the issues that you are working on, right? And in this case, you want to understand the real facts. And by real facts, I said, sometimes if you remember one class that we had, you can have a problem, but because nobody has ever done a research on the problem, we all keep thinking about the wrong reasons why the situation is happening. So you have to do a very good research so that you understand the actual reason why those things are happening. So that's what we call the real facts, okay? Not the facts you think, the real facts on the ground about that is the problem that is causing the issue. And the reason why it's called a concrete gaps analysis is because you want to concretize what the problem is and what the solution might be, and also, of course, where we want to go, okay? But there's another one called a conceptual gap analysis. I'm talking about different ways in which gaps analysis are used. Now, in the conceptual gaps analysis, in this case, you're trying to create something that doesn't exist. So I gave an example of a mobile phone. I said, remember there's a time when there were no mobile phones. But assume if I am an innovator, I keep thinking, okay, I think the world needs, the ideal world I want to live in is a world where people can actually communicate all the time. And if I think people should communicate all the time, what should I do? Maybe I should invent a telephone, not that stays at home or that is in a fixed place. Maybe I should invent a telephone that stays in people's pockets. Okay? And so that's the ideal, what we call an ideal model. We can even take a car. There are people who, if you remember, I'm sure all of you are old enough, cars were not always automatic. There's the stick shift, right? Cars. And maybe somebody thought, my ideal world is to have a car that is able to really change gears on its own. So using that concept, that imagined concept, you start asking yourself, okay, if I am to create a model like this, what would it look like? So you sort of like make assumptions about what you want the future to look like, and then you create what is called a hypothetical scenario. You create that ideal situation. And so I was saying, if you are here, if we were, for example, a design or an innovation company, we would sit down and ask, okay, if the phone, you want people to work with a phone, what then would that mean? How should this phone look like? So somebody will obviously say, if somebody is to work with it, it cannot be heavy, right? It needs to be small. Maybe it needs to not just be a telephone, but it can be something that tells you the time, or something that tells you the distance, or something that tells you the date, or something that tells you, the direction that you are going. So all those features become the things that we use to try and conceptualize, or to try and see what we can do to create a phone. So this gaps analysis is being done for an imagined product. We are saying that we want a product that goes into our pockets. The gap is we cannot communicate all the time unless you go to the place where there's a telephone booth, okay? Somebody tell me if we are together up to that point.
Yes, we're together.
Yes, we are together.
All right,
Yes.
good job. Sawa. So there's something else also, how else a gap analysis is used. Sometimes, and some of this you may not use in your projects, but you can use them when you're working, right? Sometimes you use a gap analysis when you can focus on, for example, if you run an organization, you can focus on the entire organization and ask yourself, if I'm a businesswoman that sells, let's say, that does retail, okay? What are the gaps in my business? What do I want my business to look like in the next 2 years, okay? And do I want more customers, for example? Is the gap that I'm not getting many customers? And if that is the case, how do I increase the number of customers? So basically, you're not looking at a single aspect in the organization, you're looking at the entire organization, okay? And then that's what we call a strategic gap. A strategic gap is, as a company, I want to be known as the biggest shoe seller in my country, okay? I don't know, do you guys in West Africa have a shoe company called Bata? Or in Southern Africa, do you have a shoe company called Bata?
Yes, we do in South Africa.
Okay. West Africa, do you guys have a shoe company called Bata?
Doc, I've not heard anything like that before.
Yes,
Bata, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, somebody hasn't heard, but I'm sure. So Bata is a shoe company. Sometimes they do a lot of school shoes or just general shoes, right? So if you're maybe, I'm sure Bata did not start as a company that was going to move in the continent. But maybe one day they said, we just don't want to sell in my country. We want to sell everywhere, okay? So you can do a gap analysis and ask yourself, what will it take me to move from, let's say, selling shoes in Nigeria to selling shoes across Africa? Then you try and understand the gap. Is it the shipping costs? Is it, will people like this style or this brand? And then you try and figure out, okay, what are the actions I must take for me to move from being a company that sells shoes in Africa alone, in Nigeria alone, and I start selling shoes in Africa, okay? So that's a strategic gap analysis. You're looking at the entire organization. But sometimes for big companies, sometimes they look at, they look at aspects of their companies, and aspects of their companies could be maybe the human resource side, maybe the customer care side, maybe the management side. So this one is more operational, okay? So you're looking at one aspect in the organization and ask yourself, assume you are Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is such a big company that if one department is like a company by itself, and so that department wants to make sure, let's say, goods are moving in a shorter time, let's say from North Pole to Africa, okay? So they will do a gaps analysis as a company to see what can we do about logistics so that we shorten the time. So you can do a gaps analysis, like I'm saying, within the organization or even with an organization as a whole. Okay, so those are the different ways in which a gap analysis can be used. So I want somebody to quickly think about the problem you're tackling, and you tell me an example of how you would use a gap analysis. Anybody who can think quickly and give me an answer? Anybody? Francisca is the only one who talks to me on this chat. Billy, do you have an answer? Oh, Francisca is not on today. Oh, Francisca is here.
No, I'm here.
You're the only one who talks to me, so tell me.
Okay, I'll try. So I am dealing with unemployment.
Yeah.
And if so one issue with unemployment in Ghana is that there's a skills mismatch. Okay. That is the skills needed by the employers. After students come out of school, they don't have those skills. So one gap analysis I can do is to first find out what are the exact skills needed for the current job market.
Yes, that's a very good one. And actually, that's perfect. You're spot on, because a lot of times, because you need to know what are we training for, isn't it? And actually, I did an analysis of that in Africa with a YMCA project, and we found that young people are studying, but what they are studying now is not what they want to do in the future. So a lot of them were studying maybe, I don't know, different things, but they wanted in the future to work somewhere very different. And so actually understanding the skills that young people want to use in the future will help you then say, the school needs to be training A, B, C, D for you to be relevant to what students want to do in the future. Excellent. Toga, do you have a contribution? Fiona, I think you wanted to speak as well.
I don't know if I'm right, but can I give it a try?
Yes, please.
So I'm doing, my project's got to do with teenage pregnancy. So I was wondering if it would be a gaps analysis, if, let's say, okay, part of gaps analysis, if I'd like analyzed what teenagers are taught about practicing sex and whatnot, just to look at how much thingy, what schools are covering and stuff.
Exactly. And that would come from a point of view of, so assume you're saying that part of the problem I have uncovered is that young people are getting pregnant because they don't have adequate information, isn't it? That's your challenge. And then you now say, we need young people. The ideal is we want young people to have a lot of information about sexuality, for example, okay? And then you come in and then you have to ask, yes, you have to do your gaps analysis and see, okay, if let's say we establish they don't have enough, you need to see who are the people who are supposed to give them information. So in fact, Fiona would challenge you to do a gaps analysis for different sectors. Let's say like, if they're in the religious sector, let's say the mosque or the church or, you know, some religious organization, find out how much information they are taught there. Then find out how much information they're even taught by their parents, or they are taught by their peers, or they are taught by school. And that way, actually, that gaps analysis will be so amazing, because you will even see who's giving more information than the other, and you'll actually begin to, and then even find out young people themselves, what is the ideal place for them to get information. And we've actually done this before, and young people actually, they said a lot of the information they are getting is on social media. Now, what is the problem with that? Remember, social media is maybe an advertising place or marketing place. So they are likely to get the wrong information. And so maybe the campaign you need to have then, if you establish that the gap is the people who are supposed to give the information are not giving it. And when they give it, they're not putting it in the place where young people access this information. You may find that the best strategy is that you need to have these people put this information in maybe an app of some sort, so that young people can anonymously get that information. And you may find that then you can actually move even to the next level of inventing an application that can help young people access, accurate information about their sexuality. Do you see, Fionn, how that goes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and you have a very good opportunity to actually solve a real world problem, because you took the time to do a good gaps analysis. Excellent, excellent. Toga, do you have something to say? Somebody was lifting up their hands. It keeps coming and going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so my project is around indiscriminate disposal of waste.
Okay.
The gap in that project is that people are not, there's a gap of orientation in terms of how to properly dispose this waste, and there's also a gap of technological waste disposal. Like they are not, we don't really understand these technologies that we can use to properly dispose this and manage this waste in this community that I'm trying to do this project on.
Okay, so how would you do a gaps analysis?
Okay, by identifying these gaps first, and then find solutions to these gaps that I'm going to identify.
Okay, yeah. So one of the gaps maybe we could try and unpack, for example, is, let's say, where is waste dumped, isn't it? Because waste management is a very big topic. So maybe you want to narrow down and say, okay, after I've done all my analysis, it looks like, okay, we are generating waste. In the West, they try and have like 3 bins. There's one for plastics, one for biodegradable, isn't it? We're not doing that in Africa or in your village. So then you begin even to look at, maybe you realize that maybe the place where they are even dumping is not the place for that. So you can do a gaps analysis even about, assume you now say that the biggest problem is dumping, let's say, just assume. So you want people to, yes, there's waste that is generated, but it's not managed well because of dumping badly. So that gap is to then ask, what must you do? Do I start a company, for example, or do I work with the municipal to provide 2 places where people can separate the biodegradable versus the non-biodegradable? And then do we identify somebody who recycles, let's say, polythene and maybe plastics, so that all the plastics, instead of them being dumped in the village or near the sea, we take all that to that person, and we begin a system, because that's actually a money generating income, a money generating project for young people, for example. So do we do that so that we solve the problem of dumping, and even then dumping in a way that is not, environmentally friendly? Do you see? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay. Sawa. Onilude, do you want to say something?
No, I just spoke now. Someone just spoke now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So Maritu is saying about the child rape. The real fact is that the rapists are most of the time forgiven, okay, by family and stay in the same house of the victim. So the ideal is to get them all in jail and help psychologically. Okay, yes, the victims. And so the gap analysis here, Maritu, and this is a very good topic, but also very sensitive, is to then begin to ask, how do you work with the justice system for that to happen? So why it is to understand, why are the victims not being arrested? Why are family members being accepting of the same, people to stay in the same house who abuse their own children? So I think there's an issue here about sensitizing family members. There's an issue here about causing the people who are victimized to speak and finding maybe a safe space. So I know of a project like this in my country where they went as far as providing a number that can help people to report anonymously. And once there's evidence, the people are arrested without question. So, you can find that gaps analysis can really help you to figure out some of the solutions that need to be done. Even in trying to ask, how can we sensitize, for example, the police to make sure that they are able to be sensitive, but also to do their work without being bribed. So thank you very much, Kamara. I think you get the concept right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to reasons for a gap analysis. Sometimes you want to benchmark, like in organization, sometimes you want to compare yourself with the best. So I took the example of women representation. Rwanda is said to have the best ratio of men to women when it comes to political leadership. So we can say if your country has only 5% female representation, you can say, I want my ideal, I want to benchmark my problem. So one way, in fact, this is just one way of looking at that gaps analysis. How do you create visions? How do you create the ideal situation? And one way to create that ideal situation is to look at countries or situations that have done better than us and learn from them. So that, if this is my current situation, I want my ideal situation to be like A, B, C, D. So in my case, if I'm doing the project on women leadership, my benchmark, for example, can be Rwanda. Okay. So for Kamara, who is doing the issue of child molestation or rape, you may want to ask which country has the best, mechanisms of ensuring that this is dealt with. Then maybe that can be your ideal, okay? Number 2 is for analysis purposes. And analysis here means, somebody mute your phone, please. Gaye, mute. Yeah. Gaye, your phone. Okay. So an analysis means that this gaps analysis helps you do analysis. I don't know if that makes sense. So it helps you to analyze the problem a bit more deeply. Okay. So this is just an example. You can find that by the time you're done with a good gaps analysis, you will find like there's a way in which we state problems. We just know that there are many girls who are not going to school. But a good gaps analysis should give you a very precise figure of how many. And the reason why you want to reach this point of how many is because it is by understanding the how many that you know how big your problem is. So a gaps analysis helps you find the preciseness of the problem. So like you may find that this is a study that was done by USAID, and they found that in Kenya, any illegal abortion complications, when there's a complication, it costs the health sector $50 to treat that complication. So it is in their interest as a government to try, part of healthcare, provision of healthcare is to say, how can we deal with not using $50 per person on illegal abortions? You understand? So that healthcare is not just about paying for people to get a service. It is also trying to prevent the problems that make the cost of healthcare so high. Okay? I hope that makes sense. The other reason you want to check or to do a gaps analysis, especially for companies, is to understand whether you are getting a good return on investment. So if I was a government and I have been funding a project, okay, let's say free primary education, I want to come back and say, since I started free primary education, how much money have I put in it? Then I also want to understand, okay, so far, if this is the money I've put in it, what improvement have I made by putting this money, okay? So you understand the precise cost of something, and then you can make the right adjustment. So a gap analysis helps you generally to understand the investments that have been made. And even for you, you may not be a government, but it is in your interest for you to understand what are the investments that are being made on the issues that you're dealing with. So you may find, for the gentleman who is doing the issue on waste management, you may find that your entire, whether it's a local council, you may find that there is zero budget, zero on what can I say, on waste management. And that gives you an opportunity to, if you can make a very strong case for, let's say, waste management vis-a-vis health in a community, and there's zero budget, you can actually design a very good policy advocacy program to make the government put in some money for waste management as part of ways to solve the dumping problem. You see, so for the person who is doing, for example, Francisca, who is doing the issue of unemployment, she may find that universities are spending money on the wrong subjects. Because let's say they are spending money on secretarial, it's just an example, secretarial college, but everybody wants to work in computer invention. It tells you that the university needs to stop spending money on programs that are not, young people are not interested in, and begin putting money, and here money means any type of resources. They need to employ the right people with the right skills for the education demands for the future. So perhaps they need to look for, whether it's an agriculture, to start an agriculture department and scrape off, for example, I don't know, let's say a secretarial department. So it is a good way, investment is a good way to look at, is where the money going, adding to the problem? Are we investing in the wrong places instead of investing in the place that will solve the problem? Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Awesome. I'm glad you're getting it. And then analysis. Oh, I already did this. Okay, this is actually not analysis. Any project, any gaps analysis should be able to help you understand the shortcomings of a problem. And I think I've already spoken to this. Sometimes we prescribe the wrong solutions to a problem. And so you want to look at the shortcomings of what is being done. But also, sometimes we actually do it. So the example I give here is, if you look at across Africa, you will see that governments, for every $10, government loans young people to start small businesses. Only about $2 is paid back. The $8 never comes back, okay? So government is losing so much money funding young people to start small businesses. Why? Because those businesses, actually, young people are not able to pay because their businesses fail within the first 2 years. So, and there are many reasons for that. So if I was designing this program, I wouldn't continue giving young people this $10 every year, knowing that I'm only going to get back $2. I will have to sit down and redesign this problem and ask, why are young people why, first of all, are young people's businesses failing within the first 2 years? Fix that problem. And then I ask myself, if I fix this problem, will I get at least $6 out of $10 being paid back? It means I have improved. So I need to understand the gap, the reason why, the shortcoming of this very noble program. Why is it not giving me maximum results? So in a sense, you're trying to understand the shortcoming of your project. So you can see a gaps analysis can be used at various stages. Yes, you can at the beginning. So think about, you have designed a waste management problem, like you've managed to get the government to allocate some money, right? In this, then you still do a gaps analysis to see, okay, when government was not allocating money, this was the magnitude of the problem. Now that they have allocated some money, has the problem reduced? If not, why? And then so that's a second gaps analysis. You do again and again until the day the problem is fully solved and you're getting maximum results. So, and that's why we say that it's also can be used for performance indicator. And a performance indicator is the reason why you want to understand your shortcomings is that you're constantly looking at the performance of your interventions, and you're constantly analyzing to understand how your intervention is working or not working. Comment ça va, Hernaina? Toga, mute your phone, mute your microphone. Good, sawa. Okay. Sawa. So how do you perform? Actually, I'm at the tail end of my presentation. And a gaps analysis can be difficult, but it's not difficult at all. You actually can use tools we already know. So let's try first of all and look at the process. The process is that you identify the area to be analyzed. So what is the problem? Okay. Once you've done that, then you come and identify, you analyze the current state. What are the issues that have contributed to the main issue? So the problem, for example, is waste management in my village. But the second issue is waste management is a big thing. What exactly is waste management? What are the issues contributing to waste management? So you break down, it's like a breaking down of the problem. Number 3, establish the ideal future state. So this, like I already told you, is you can use benchmarks from other places to say, if this is the problem and this is what I want. So to establish what you want, you can look at the places that have the ideal state of affairs that you want. So for example, you can say that I have heard that Rwanda has the cleanest city, Rwanda is the cleanest country in Africa, okay? So I may want to understand, what have they done? What is the ideal? Why have they reached that? If I want my village to be the cleanest village, how did Rwanda achieve the status of the cleanest city? So you may find they have policies, you may find they have some certain allocations of money, you may find that they have certain bylaws. So maybe you start looking at, okay, even I can take this and adapt it to my village, okay? So that gives you the future state. And then number 3, you now begin to compare the current and the future state to establish the distance, how far apart, how much, what is the magnitude of my problem, okay? And then after that, you describe the gap. Describe the gap means you start understanding, okay, what would it take me for me to shorten this gap, or for me to close the gap? So if you may, what will it take for me to close the gap? And then you describe that, and then obviously then you create what is called a plan. A plan means, so for example, I already gave you this. It could mean that the gentleman working on waste management can say, okay, my first plan is to go and get these people to invest money, my local council. But my second plan is to identify somebody who's doing recycling and talk to them to find out, do they need recycling material? Can my village supply recycling material? So can it mean that maybe, how do I make sure that this recycling material gets? Maybe I incentivize the villagers with maybe some coins so that they pack for me the plastic separately. Okay. Maybe I get young people every Saturday to collect this trash or this plastics every weekend, so that then maybe I get a space, somebody to donate a space, or I get a space where they collect the plastics. So you are beginning to be very precise about what you're going to do, but how you're going to do it, in chronological order. That way you are attacking the problem and you're beginning to close the problem slowly by slowly, with small measures. Okay. Hi, Tafazwa, how are you? Okay. Does anybody have any question about the process?
For myself, I don't have any question.
Okay. Now, the thing about...
please.
Yes?
Yeah, can you come back a little bit? Describe the gap and quantify the difference.
Sorry, just say that again.
Yeah, I said describe the gap and quantify the difference. I don't understand it. Yeah.
Okay, is it on this slide that I have?
Yeah, of course. Describe the gap and quantify the difference.
Describe the gap and quantify the difference. Okay. Does anybody understand what that question means? So, okay. Were you here at the beginning, Billy?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I think I described what is a gap. The gap is basically the difference between your current state of affairs and the ideal state of affairs. What is your project about?
My project is early age school abandonment. Yeah.
So, like, how many girls on average leave school or abandon school?
Yeah, really many. Like according to my research, almost 60% of girls don't go to school.
Don't go to school. Okay.
They don't go to school. Yeah.
Meaning, in your case, 40% go to school. So that's that is your current status, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then
of course.
How many, if you were to achieve the best solution, how many girls would you want to go to school? What's your vision?
Maybe 60% to go to school. 60%.
That's your vision? 60, only 60. Let's try 80, 80%.
No, 80 is difficult, really. It's not even possible.
It's very difficult. Okay, so 60.
Yeah.
So if your ideal
60.
is 60, okay, if your ideal is 60, what is the difference between 60 and 40?
60 and 40, 20.
20%, that's your gap.
Okay.
That's your gap, okay? So you're saying that now my gap, and I want to understand, how do I get 20% more girls to go to school? Right?
Yes.
So if that's the case, maybe, and then you start asking yourself, if that is the 20%, what would be the quickest, maybe, what is one of the quickest ways I can get some girls to go to school? What have you found out in your research?
The easiest way for the girls to go to school, to sensitize them, to sensitize their parents to let them to go to school.
Yeah. So it means, okay, and in your country, is your country Muslim or Christian, basically?
No, it is a Muslim's country.
Okay. So, and you've established what are the reasons many girls are not going to school? I think you said early marriage, isn't it?
Yeah, early marriage, yeah.
But why is there early marriage? Is it because of religion or culture?
Both.
Both. So maybe You can tell yourself, for me to get an additional 20% girls to go to school, maybe I need to talk to the caddies so that they can, once they are convinced, they start preaching the message of a girl cannot get married until they are 18. You understand? Until they go. So maybe that becomes your action plan or your strategy to bridge the gap. You understand?
Yeah.
So to move this 40% to 60. So you always, the gap analysis is to tell you, I need 20% to go to school. And what I need to figure out, based on what the data is telling me, my biggest problem is if it's early marriage, and the early marriage is because of religion and culture, then I need to find a way to deal with religion and culture to begin increasing the number of girls that are going to school.
Yes, okay. That makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
In some countries, like there's someone I think was doing it in South Africa, I think. And my sense is, for them, the problem will be different. It might be that for them to get the gap filled, it could be like maybe lower the fees. You see, it's the same problem, but different solutions. Yeah. Okay. So what are the tools to perform a gaps analysis? Oh, this is a big one, but it's just a tool you feel, okay? It's not, it's called an impact gaps canvas. So it's the same thing. You have your problems here or your challenges here, you have your ideals here, and then you have the solutions here. So you basically just answer these questions, okay? So how would you describe the challenge, for example? So for the person I talked to just now, I think I now forgot the name. Your problem will be culture, and let's say your problem manifests as culture and religion. You know, who is affected? It is, yes, girls more than boys, isn't it? Who is it related to? How is it related to other issues? It's related to, for example, you know, it is related to, let's say, high maternal mortality. You see, because when young girls get pregnant, when they get married, they'll get pregnant. And when they get teenage pregnancies, the pregnancies become more complicated. So it's related to many other issues like poverty. It's related to health conditions. It's related to population issues, etc. Okay, then you come back and ask, okay, what are the causes of this challenge, and what is keeping it from changing? So in this case, you can answer something like culture and religion, because it's a way of life, okay? Who or what benefits from this current status? Maybe the men do, okay? Because the older men are able to marry younger girls. So as you analyze and answer these questions, you're beginning to try and get solutions for your issue. So this gaps analysis, I know I said I'll post something. I was so busy. I was out in the field for a workshop, so I didn't post last week, but I'm hoping that immediately we finish this call, I will post this canvas, then you can use it as a tool to do your analysis, and all you need to do is just answer the questions that have been asked, okay? By the time you're done, you will be able to do the key insights or the key things that you will need to do to be able to solve the problem. The other one is, how many of you have come across a SWOT analysis?
Doctor, I have come across it.
Yes, it's very simple. Anyone who has not come across a SWOT analysis? Okay, Abadodo, thank you. I can see you have come across it. Okay. Anyone who has not come across it? Okay, it's just a table that helps you look at, for example, if you're doing in an organization, assume you're doing a gaps analysis for an organization. Okay, thanks, Tafazwa. You want to understand what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what opportunities do you have, and what threats do you have? So I'll give you an example. there are two companies that came from the West. Hernaina, I'm not sure I understand. Okay, you will translate for me. So, okay, so there's a company. I don't know whether you've heard this story. There's a company that came, two people that came to, you know, some island, and they were asked, okay, thanks. Oh, you are translating Swot in French. Okay, thank you. And one of them called the boss and says, oh my goodness, there is no business on this island, because these two people were from a shoe company. And they said, oh my goodness, there is no business in this island because nobody wears shoes. But the second guy said, oh my goodness, we have so much business because nobody in this island wears shoes. What is the difference between those two perspectives?
The one person sees it and the other sees.
Sorry, I missed that. One sees what?
An opportunity, and the other sees a problem that.
Exactly. Yeah, so thank you very much. Yes, that's so there are many opportunities. Like, for example, the person doing waste management, right now it looks like the biggest problem on earth. But if you think about it, there are so many opportunities you can create with a problem that you have. So you need to look at your problem and ask yourself, what opportunities do I have? And just by the example we've had, I think we've managed to say you can get young people to get job opportunities by just, you know, getting them to collect the plastics from households over the weekend. By the time they do a whole village, there will be, and they sell to the person who does recycling, even if it's not a lot of money, you're starting something that is, there's an opportunity there for them to be busy and to make, it's an employment opportunity. Maybe the people in the village have an opportunity to make a few coins with waste, what they consider waste. So you see but it depends on how you look at it. And so you need to be very careful and make sure that you have the right perspective on the issue of your problem. So let's say for the person doing, you know, the rape issue, even if it's such a bad problem, if you look closely, maybe you might find opportunities in that as well. So the point to make is you need to think about your issue. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? These tend to be internal, okay? And these opportunities and threats tend to be external, okay? And you want to use a table. Now, when you're doing a SWOT analysis, make sure you think about it in several ways. You think about a SWOT analysis or the strengths, the weaknesses in terms of, are there skills gaps? Are there, you know, resource gaps when it comes to human resource? Are there strategy gaps? Are there structure gaps? Are there system gaps? Are there style gaps? You know, do we even have a shared vision? And by this I'm saying, so for example, the gentleman working on the issue of young girls not going to school because of early marriage, you realize that you don't have a shared vision with, for example, the caddies you're going to talk to. So the first place is to try and ask yourself, how do I make these people see the problem the way I see it? So you have to ensure that before the caddies can help you, they have to be on board in understanding that it is not in the interest of the community for girls to be married in their teenagerhood. And so you have to create this issue of a shared vision. And then you have to look at the strengths of the issue, the weaknesses of the issue from all these perspectives. And the reason for that is it will help you get more ideas on where the problem really is. So you may find that in this issue of any issue, let's even say the one for young girls getting married early, you may find that, of course, there is the culture, But you may find that a lot of people also, even if it is a culture issue, you may find that the structure of poverty is making that problem even faster, and that parents don't really want to marry their children off. It's just that they are so poor that it's better off to have somebody else feed your daughter than have 10 children in the house. So that structural understanding, the structure widens your scope, so that, again, remember, we want to diagnose the problem properly. So you use these parameters to do your SWOT analysis to expand the details so that you are precise about what the problem really is. Now, once you've established your strengths, and you can also look at your SWOT analysis by answering these questions. And this, although this is in the context of an organization, you can use it for the problem we are solving. So you answer these questions, but ask yourself, how can I turn the weaknesses into strengths? And what are my strategies for dealing with the weaknesses? What are my strategies for dealing with the threats, the external factors that are threatening my issue? So this also helps you in a way to start using this table, will help you to get strategies for how to close the gaps. Does that make sense? Have I lost anybody?
I think it's okay.
Okay. It makes sense. So these are tools you're using to complement each other, so that in the end, they help you generate information. They are tools that, you see, I can ask you this question that you are not thinking about. How might our competitors do to hurt us? Or, what social changes might threaten us? So assume the gentleman who's working on environmental issues. Maybe you're thinking, okay, I am bothered by the issue of dumping. But if I answer these questions, what are social changes? What are the social changes that might threaten us? It gives me an urgency. So for example, if I'm from a fishing community in the coastal region, and I'm realizing that the fish is actually dying off because of plastics, then we are saying that we are threatened that our food supply from the ocean is going to reduce because of our dumping issue. So this question makes you even see the problem from a much deeper perspective and the reason why it is urgent for you to deal with the problem. So the questions are ways for you to generate answers and to be able to, to understand the problem, to get more information about your problem. So the SWOT analysis is one way you can use to populate your gap analysis. And you can use this SWOT analysis to actually try and complete this table, to complete this gap analysis. And that's why I'm saying each tool is not so adequate on its own. If you use them to complement each other, you will get a very, very, very robust and rich analysis. The other one is what we call the Pastel Analysis. And in this one, you just ask yourself, if I'm to think about any issue, whether it's the rape cases, whether it's so for example, the person who's working on the issue of rape, the temptation is to think about rape as a household or a community issue. But you may find that if you think about it, you may find political reasons why it is a big issue. Okay, maybe in our own political system, we've actually institutionalized gender-based violence. And we can do that by not knowing. Okay, it can be a culture rather than a rule or a law. So you may find there are political reasons why some things are happening. There are economic reasons, there are social reasons, there are technological reasons. Like somebody, if anyone is working on drugs, you will find that maybe the reason why there's a drug problem in a certain village, maybe the politician there does that to raise money for political campaigns. So it has nothing to do with young people in our society are drug addicts. It could actually be the political leader is a drug trader or a drug lord. Okay, so you realize that then you need to deal with it from a political perspective. So there are technological reasons, there are environmental, there are legal, there are ethical reasons. And one way to populate and to answer the question in your gaps analysis is to ask, what is the political angle or the social or whatever? What are the angles I'm seeing of this problem? How is it manifesting in my community? Again, this will help you dig deeper into either your problem or the vision or the solutions you need to give. Okay. Anybody with a comment? Anybody with a comment or a contribution? I want to ask, for example, the person who's doing the work on rape, can you, in your research, think about political reasons why there's a persistence of child abuse in your community, or a technological reason, or an environmental reason, or a legal reason, or, any of these reasons? Can you think about it?
Yes, I can.
Okay, give me an example. Give me an example that has surprised you.
Okay, so I think for the political reasons.
Yeah. Say hi to the little one.
Okay. I think it's how can I say that? English is sorry.
Yeah.
For the political reasons, I think they really don't take the big measures.
Yeah.
To have
okay, I think I get it. Like oh yes, I hear you, and you're right. The fact that they delay in giving justice to victims, it almost gives permission, isn't it, to perpetrate to continue doing it. And so that adds to the problem, isn't it? The reason why it is not going down is because the justice system is not working. And so if and that begins to give you a different perspective, so that you can deal with perpetrators. Yes, you can deal with the victims. Let's say, like, you can provide a counseling center for young children that have been abused. But that will not stop your community from having a lot of child abuse. Why? Because there's a supply problem, and we need to find a way of dealing with the political problem. Now, the thing about a gaps analysis is not for you to say, I can do everything. It's for you to say, can I identify somebody who actually works on the issues of justice? Can I work with them so that they try and help me deal with this problem from this perspective, from the justice angle, from the human rights angle, while I deal, for example, with it from, let's say my organization is a small organization. Let's say it's an organization that can only do community-based work. Yes, but unless you do both community-based work, but also work with an organization that is doing justice work to try and bring this issue to attention, you will not solve the problem. You see, you understand what I mean? So it is important, to look at these issues because they manifest themselves in different ways. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
I have a question. Yeah.
Yes.
So do you think that it's possible to raise the issue of political and religious problem?
Do I think it's what?
It's possible, like if something is political or religion, because it's not dependent on the people. It's something that is written like this. Yeah. So do you think that it's possible to raise this kind of issues?
Yes, yes. So you see, the reason why you want to understand how it manifests itself, let's say like in terms of religion or in terms of political, is so that you then begin to ask, because those ones are usually very can I say, hard to resolve. But you want to begin to ask, are there people who are already doing it that I can partner with, so that we join hands and make the work easier, or we still continue? Can I help them continue campaigning for these issues? Yes, so it helps you to understand. You see, you can't go to a religious leader, for example, and just say, I want you to end child marriage. You have to understand, why do religious leaders in my community, for example, encourage child marriages? What is my argument to help them see my point of view? Okay, so that you are helping them to understand the solution from your point of view. And then you continue working with them, or continue partnering with people that can work with them more effectively, so that the issue is solved at some point. So but the first place before you start working is to understand how it manifests itself, either politically or socially or religiously or whatever, so that you understand how to solve it. And you may find that, okay, at some point you may decide, okay, if I start by tackling the political reasons, I will be jailed before I can do something about this problem. So you may prioritize and say, okay, let me work on the maybe simpler issues first. And as I build a track record as an organization, or as I raise more money, eventually we shall deal with the political issues. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course.
Dr. Kati,
Yeah.
one second. Hernana, can you give me hosting right? Sorry, Dr. Kati, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm actually finished, so people can ask me questions about it. Yeah, but I don't know, do you find it as a useful tool to also help you think about solutions? Oh, nobody finds it useful. Okay. Still, you have learned something new.
These were very, very, very enriching. I've learned a lot of things, and I think it will help me for my project.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want also, Dr. Katindi, excuse me.
Yes.
If you could just explain a bit about the last assignment, because we were very struggling to do it.
Okay, I even forgot what the last assignment was. Let me have a look. Okay, but so that was the class for today, guys, and I hope it has helped you. So this one is not an assignment as such, but if this is to help you, if you like to understand your issue more, I will post this separately. Then you can use this to deepen your analysis for your project. Okay. So I'll post this for you to sort of like try and see whether you can do a gaps analysis for yourself. Okay.
Okay.
Let me try and check the last one, the last assignment.
Yes, it was about systems.
Yes. Systems, okay. Okay, I found it. Let me just open it. Okay. Okay. Oh, this one, eh? This was the assignment, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
So you wanted me to, okay. So what's your project about? Sorry, I keep asking. I know you've told me before. Just remind me.
Yeah, it's about child rape.
Okay, child rape. So in understanding, like, what are some of the constituent parts? Okay. So let's say you remember our tea bag? Do you remember the tea bag we made? How to make,
Yes. Yes.
how to make tea. Do you remember?
Yes.
So
yes.
What I was asking you to do is, so this is your issue. You're trying to make, your cup of tea is child rape, isn't it? But child rape has many things, isn't it? There is the issues around government. Again, by the way, today's lesson is very helpful for you to finish that assignment. What are the government issues around child rape, isn't it? What are the economic issues around rape? What are the, let's say, technological issues around rape? What are the, social issues around rape? So that is like describing your system, okay? You're trying to see the constituent parts or the things that are contributing to child rape. So that's the system. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
Then the second thing was describe how those parts work together or interact so that you can understand why is rape a big issue in your community. So for example, and I think you mentioned this to us, isn't it? That sometimes at the family level, families are living with the abuser, isn't it? And the family is in denial about this issue that is going on in the house, right? And then the issue, apart from the family accepting or trying to look at more like familial ways of dealing with it, the law itself, isn't it? That's another connection. The law itself is not giving justice, okay? When the law is not giving justice, what happens? The rules of the game favor the abuser, right? Let's say there's another connection here called toxic masculinity, where the person themselves, by the virtue of their upbringing, does not respect a young girl or a woman when they say no, isn't it? They think, no means yes. And so maybe their own, whether it's toxic masculinity, contributes to the whole ecosystem. So in a sense, you're trying to make the actual connection. How these parts are working together. Remember, we are trying to ask ourselves, how is rape not getting resolved in my community? So, and then maybe you're saying, society, or let's say, society doesn't also see a problem. So they seem to, even if somebody does it, it's always blamed on the woman. So out of all these systems, there are specific parts, there are specific things that are happening to increase there. So you're just looking for what are the connections and what are the relationships that are just making this issue bigger and more compounded than it usually is. Then what does it produce? When you think about all those issues combined, they are producing, let's say, they are producing more abuse for young children. They are not only producing, so think about it. If a young girl was raped when she was young, it means when she's an adult, there will be gender-based violence. Even a young boy, isn't it? There will be gender-based violence. And so what's happening is that it's not only producing more child rape, it is producing other societal issues. So, and it's a personal process. There isn't a right or wrong answer. It's just the way you look at things. And you see this diagram here. It's just a way, let's assume this is an issue. You're just putting different issues in different things and saying, gosh, this connects to this. Actually, this connects to this. Oh, by the way, I didn't know this connects to this and this connects to this. It begins to really just show you the complexity of the problem, but also how complicated the many other problems that it is producing. Okay? It's just a mental exercise for you to appreciate how big the problem is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And you can use the tools we have done today to actually complete this assignment. And this assignment is basically for you to just see the connections in your problem. This one is meant for you to see the connections, because the connections, and it's what I was saying earlier, a lot of times we look at an issue from only a political perspective, and yet it has technological, social, legal, ethical. It has all those connections. But if we don't expand our mind, we don't see the other connections in the problem.
Okay, it's clear.
That child does not like systems thinking. Sawa, sawa. Any other question? Okay, I hand over the meeting back to you, Lawrence.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Katinge. Colleagues, you can unmute your mic and or maybe just reaction in the chat box for Dr. Katinge. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I think we've come to the end for today. For those of us who still have assignments outstanding, I really encourage you to send these assignments. Also, I think you got the clarity from her regarding the past assignment that she gave. I'm hoping that we keep engaging in the chat room so that we keep the training alive. Some of our colleagues were not here today. Sometimes just make it a duty to reach out to people and check up on them. They could be facing issues, so try reaching out to them. But otherwise, thank you so much, Her and Aina. Let's have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Have a good weekend too.
Bye-bye.